All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining our call tonight and learning about our brand new Saving Life on Earth campaign. Again, my name is Ash Loth. I'm the engagement manager with the Center for Biological Diversity based in Oakland, California, and I'm super glad to be with all of you here tonight. So for all of those of you who aren't familiar with us, the center believes in a life-centered world where governments and people respect wildlife, wildlands, clean air and water, and protect our planet's rich biodiversity. Many of you have already been a part of our nationwide campaign to save gray wolves and restore the Endangered Species Act. Thank you so much. We have 480 people on the call so far, and I'm confident that with all of your help, we can make great strides in protecting the wild this year. So tonight, as I said, we are launching the Saving Life on Earth campaign to stop the extinction crisis. In all honesty, we're actually going to call this campaign Fight Extinction, but we decided to call it Saving Life on Earth because that's exactly what we're going to do. All of the bleak statistics can be super overwhelming, but we have to fight despair and take action to remember that we can make a difference and that hope is contagious. Make no mistake, this campaign will be big. It will take a lot of time and a lot of hard work, and we will win. And this campaign is more than just pressuring candidates and the 2020 election cycle. The ways to take action during the elections that we're going to be discussing tonight is just one part. It's just the first phase. This campaign is bigger than just electing people. Turning the tide of extinction will require a huge effort, and the first phase of that campaign is to make sure that the presidential candidates hear us loud and clear in 2020. We know that when people rise up, change happens, and that's why we're calling on you tonight and over the course of this campaign to be courageous and to take bold action that's necessary for us to win. Because when we do this, we will win. This campaign matters. Our effort is meaningful to save life on Earth. And although we've lost lots of species, we can still save many more. And that's how we're going to make a difference. So since we started, we actually have 510 people on this call, and more are joining every second. But before we dive in, I'm going to hand it off to my colleague Diane to run through our tech. Diane?
Thanks, Ash. Hi, everyone. I'm Diane Dubois. I'm one of the organizers here at the center, and I am based in Asheville, North Carolina. Before we get started, just a few quick notes on tech. First of all, there is a chat box at the bottom of your screen. Many of you have already found it. Please feel free to go in there, say hi to each other, and chat, comment, whatever you want. Just please make sure to keep the conversation relevant to the call so that it's not distracting to other people. There is also a Q&A at the bottom of your screen. Please ask your direct questions in there. We don't want them to get lost in the chat box. If you called in tonight, you won't see these features, unfortunately, but you can always follow up with us after the call, and we're happy to answer any questions then. Please remember on the call tonight to follow our community guidelines that we're going to share on the screen here. We want to ensure that we have a respectful and inclusive space for everybody. And if you're new to organizing with us, you'll receive a copy of the full guidelines before you get started. And finally, I want to take a minute to share our nonpartisan disclaimer. This is an important note since we are in an election year. We are a nonprofit, so we cannot election year, meaning trying to get one candidate elected over another, but we can advocate for issues. We're focusing on elevating the extinction crisis, as Ash said, and pressuring all candidates to take bold stances. We encourage you to get politically involved for any candidate you want, but specifically when identifying as your role with us, it's important that you don't engage in electioneering. So I think that's about it on our guidelines, and now I will pass it to our esteemed guest presenters to give an introduction. First, I'm here with Tiara Curry, a senior scientist here at the center. Tiara, would you like to share a few words about yourself and what you do at the center?
Hey everybody, I'm Tiara. I'm based in Portland. And for the past 12 years, I've worked on gaining Endangered Species Act protection for individual species because I love learning about plants and animals because every species is fascinating when you dive into the details of its life. I don't know if any of you are introverts like me, but the wildlife crisis has become so dire that I'm stepping out of my comfort zone as a scientist quietly toiling away to work full time on the Saving Life on Earth campaign. And I'm excited to work with all of you.
Thanks, Tiara. It's great to have you on. We also have Brett Hartle on the call tonight. Brett is our Government Affairs Director. Would you like to share a few words, Brett?
Hey everyone, I'm Brett. I'm here in Washington, D.C. I've done a few of these webinars before. I think this campaign is really critical to pretty much everything we do, and I'm just super excited and inspired by so many people joining, and look forward to the conversation.
Thank you. It's such a privilege to have you both on the call tonight. And now I'll pass it back over to Ash to go over our agenda.
Thank you, Diane. So tonight we are going to be doing a handful of things. We're going to be explaining what the Saving Life on Earth campaign is and why it is critically important for each and all of you to take action right now. We'll be talking about how we are hitting the ground running in this critical election year. We'll also give you some background on the extinction crisis and sharing our plans to bring this issue to the forefront in 2020. We'll be talking about what you can do to lay the groundwork to hold any president and Congress accountable for taking action in the coming years. And we really hope that you stay involved throughout the year, and that if this is your first time joining us, that you take this first step to be bold and courageous. The planet needs us. So at the end of the call, we'll have time for questions as well, and this call should take about an hour. So with that, I'm going to just launch right into it. Despite the extinction crisis being one of the most pressing issues of our time, honestly, we've heard nothing about it in the debate last night, or any of the debates for that matter. And that's why this year we're making the extinction crisis a key issue in the elections and laying the groundwork to hold our elected leaders accountable for taking action in 2021 and beyond. The next president and Congress will have an enormous responsibility to undo the harm in the war on wildlife and to take bold action necessary to tackle the extinction crisis. The primary season, however, is a key window of influence to the debate and to get candidates on the record committing to take action. And you can see our goals for the campaign overall on the screen right now. This is how we're going to build a grassroots campaign to pressure candidates to take strong stances to combat the extinction crisis. And looking further ahead than 2020, we also will be working to get wildlife lovers just like yourself to get to the polls and to build our organizing power to hold the next administration accountable. Remember, this campaign is more than just the 2020 election cycle. The ways to take action on the elections that we're talking about tonight are just the first phase. This is going to be a long-term campaign. It's going to require a huge effort. But starting off on the right foot, getting the presidential candidates to hear us loud and clear is our goal and priority right now. We just actually released our presidential extinction plan. It has specific, big demands of how the next president and the US could combat the extinction crisis. And Brett is actually going to run over this in just a moment. Oops, sorry about that. And now, actually, I'm going to get to Brett and Sierra, actually. We're going to open it up to our two esteemed panelists today to talk more about why addressing the extinction crisis is so important and what we can do about it. So to start us off, Tiara, can you give us just like a quick breakdown of what the extinction crisis is?
As those of you who chose to join this call are already aware, we're in the midst of a staggering wildlife extinction crisis. The United Nations last year issued a report saying that up to 1 million species could go extinct in coming decades. And even common wildlife are declining at levels we haven't seen in our lifetime. More species are likely extinct than have been declared extinct yet, and many more are on the brink of extinction. And these numbers are overwhelming. They break your heart, but we can save life on Earth, and it starts with each and every one of us. It's important to remember that the extinction crisis isn't just about wildlife. This is a cultural and moral crisis. We're deeply connected to wildlife, and as ecosystems unravel, people suffer spiritually and emotionally. Humans have caused a lot of harm, but it's not too late for us to make a difference and to keep more plants and animals from being lost.
Thank you, Tiara. When we hear about extinction, it's usually in the context of wildlife, but I agree, it's really a cultural and moral crisis impacting all of us. So can you tell us more about our role in the extinction crisis as humans and what species have been impacted specifically?
So species across all groups are at risk now. This is a problem of our own making. Habitat destruction, climate change, pollution, exploitation, population growth are all exerting extreme pressure on plants and animals. Last year, the Bramble-Cay Melomies, which is a small mammal off the coast of Australia, was declared extinct. And this was the first mammal to be declared extinct because of climate change impacts alone, because of rising sea levels. And when this happened, Australian Senator Janet Rice said, "Extinction is a political choice." And this really resonated with me. Extinction is a political choice. It's not inevitable. It is a choice and we can change it. We've created this problem, but we can still make a difference. Like the monarch butterfly is in really big trouble, but people really love the monarch and are taking extraordinary measures to protect it. And in the midst of widespread bird decline, bald eagles, falcons, and waterfowl are all increasing because people are working to protect them. So what we have to do is get people and governments at all levels to commit to bold solutions to make these upward trends happen for all wildlife.
Thank you, Tiara. It's great to hear from your perspective as a scientist that there is hope for species when we all commit to saving them. So Brett, I'm wondering if you can tell us more about our groundbreaking solution for saving life on Earth and the campaign work we do.
Sure, yeah. So the first thing we want to do is we need politicians to recognize that this crisis is so large, and in order to address it, we really need bold solutions that match the scale of the problem, which hasn't been the case lately. I'll just say, historically, it's important to remember the United States really was the leader when it came to conservation. We signed the first international treaty in the world to protect wildlife back in 1911. We were the first nation to pass an Endangered Species Act, and it's still the gold standard when it comes to protecting species. And, this campaign is really about sort of embracing that leadership role again. So the Saving Life on Earth campaign in 2020, the first thing we want to do is really elevate this issue to all of the presidential candidates, and I'll say that includes the Republicans, including the ones that are running against the president and the Democrats. It's about pressuring members of Congress to commit to real solutions. And then, we also believe that, state governments, local governments, counties, everybody has a role in this effort. And that's sort of our thinking. So this plan, you can see the sort of the demands and the key points that are there, and I'm not going to read them all. But we think that this is sort of the first really important step to get the political folks to actually do things that are commensurate with the problem.
Yeah, thanks, Brett. And I think Diane is actually chatting out a link to the full report in the chat box. So if you're interested in seeing our recently released and groundbreaking plan to save life on Earth, go ahead and click that link. We'll also share it with you all later. So again, thank you, Brett. We know that every day of delay is one more day that makes these animals and plants move closer to extinction. So how can we make sure that this plan is implemented before we drive more species to extinction?
Sure. So, like anything, the way you get political attention is through building a grassroots movement, making noise, and building public support. There are so many threats, there's so many impacts that are still happening every day. It's still going to be very tough, but that is the key. The more noise politicians hear, the more they realize people care, and that is how you do it. The next president really is going to have to take on a huge role. I mean, I think things are at that crisis moment. And the good news, at least from sort of the campaign perspective, is this is the right time to do it. The early primary season is when there's a lot of attention, and frankly, the candidates on both sides, again, are accessible, and they are hearing from people, and that's why we want folks to get involved.
Yeah, thanks. So many of us on this call joined because we recognize the enormity of this crisis and the need for action. But Tiara, tossing it back to you, why should people care? How can we get more people on board and to build public support and get this plan implemented?
The extinction crisis has profound implications on the world that we live in, because as animals and plants disappear and ecosystems unravel, the life support systems that humans need are also at risk. Clean air, clean water, healthy soil, all of those are dependent on the biodiversity of different species, and people already feel the pain of this crisis. We're already seeing devastating storms, the ocean is acidifying, wildfires. What's happening in Australia right now is so heartbreaking, and people and wildlife need a stable, healthy climate and environment, and that depends on protecting biodiversity.
Absolutely. Thanks, Tiara. The impacts of climate crisis are so widespread, and the extinction crisis are really deeply felt. It seems like we can find ways to connect to it. Just about anyone can. So, Brett, let's boil it down. What can we do right now?
Well, we can save life on Earth with everybody's help. We need to get governments at all levels, society at all levels to engage. And, obviously we're going to focus a lot nationally, but we're also going to, eventually focus internationally, local and everything. This is about building pressure on politicians and decision makers and holding them accountable for the things they do, and really urgency and the scale of this crisis. And this grassroots campaign is going to parallel and join a lot of other center efforts, legal. We're going to do lots of scientific work, reports, media campaigns, because we need to build a movement that makes this a top level priority nationwide.
Yes, totally agree. Well, thank you so much, Brett and Tiara. That's actually a perfect segue into how each of you on our call tonight can take action right now. So what you are seeing right now is our timeline. It's incredibly ambitious. And over the next few months, we're going to be asking you to do several things. Right now, as you can see from the timeline, we just released our Saving Life on Earth plan. You're on our national kickoff call. And then over the next few months, we're actually going to be doing a tactic called bird dogging, which is catching candidates and getting them on record about hard-hitting questions. We're going to be bird dogging presidential candidates now through Super Tuesday, which is March 3rd. And then we're going to do that also with congressional candidates February 17th through March 31st. We'll also be asking you to participate in various different ways, and then I'm going to get to that right now. So two big things that we are asking you to do coming out of this call. So first, we're asking you to host a presidential debate watching party on the evening of Friday, February 7th. This is the New Hampshire debate. The main goals of a debate watching party are to raise awareness of the extinction crisis and in your community, and helping folks get more involved protecting and saving life on Earth. A debate watching party, if you've never been to one before, is actually a really great way to involve your neighbors, your friends in our 2020 plan to halt the extinction crisis. And it doesn't matter where you live, anyone can do it. A debate watching party is the perfect place to tie the work that you're doing on endangered species and why you care to the need to push candidates on this issue. It's a space for you to make connection between building grassroots power and political power in order to save our planet and life on Earth. Plus, it's a super fun community building event. And that's why we need people just like you to host parties to get our issue onto voters' radars across the US, again, on the evening of February 7th. You can host at your home or a public space that will be streaming the debate. All of that's going to work. We just need folks to get their communities talking about species, the extinction crisis, and the environment, and then talking about how candidates stack up. It's when people nationwide start getting together, talking about an issue, and taking action together that we build the collective power we need to hold candidates accountable to saving life on Earth. We're actually going to ask you to sign up right now, and to set you up for success, we prepared a thorough guide that will pair you with a mentor, and we're here to support you every step of the way. So I'm wondering right now, who's ready to answer the call and host a debate watching party? Diane, if it's not up already on your screen, Diane has launched a poll. So if you're interested, or even if you're curious about hosting a debate watching party and working in your local community to really save life on Earth, please click yes on the poll now. And I'll just watch for poll results coming in. And as folks trickle in, as folks keep on voting, I'm just going to say a few more things. We have almost 600 people on the call tonight. That's incredible. So we're just going to give folks a little bit more time. But again, you are going to be supported every step of the way with a guide, with a mentor. So even if you're just curious, you're exploring, but you're really committed to saving life on Earth, and you know that this is going to take some bold action, maybe just like Tierra, stepping a little bit out of your comfort zone, go ahead and click yes. And someone will get in contact with you and help you get all set up to join us and a huge national effort, people all across the country hosting these debate parties on Friday, February 7th for the New Hampshire debate. So gonna give maybe just a few more seconds to let people trickle in their answers. And if you're on the phone, you unfortunately won't be able to see the poll, and we're really sorry about that. But never fear, we have a backup, which is you can sign up through email tomorrow. When you get a follow-up email tomorrow and you think to yourself, oh, dang, I wish I had signed up for that. You got it. It'll be in a link in your email tomorrow. All right, maybe just the final part here. If you want to join us to Save Life on Earth, Friday, February 7th, go ahead and click yes now. Going once, going twice. All right, Diane, if you can close that poll for me, that would be great. Thank you so much. And if for whatever reason you somehow missed that poll, again, it'll be in your email tomorrow. Okay, so our second ask for tonight is to join our digital pressure team. It is a critical way to organize and apply pressure on the candidates from all angles. So Diane is going to share the sign-up page for our digital pressure team in the chat box now. And here's why we're asking you to join us digitally. We know that image and media coverage is extremely important to candidates, especially over social media, in addition to feeling that in-person grassroots pressure. We also know that electoral campaigns move extremely quickly and change course rapidly. So to get on candidates' radar and make a difference for endangered species, we've got to be nimble, we've got to be quick, we've got to communicate effectively and mobilize lots and lots of people in various locations all across the US super quick. And that's why I'm inviting you to join our digital pressure team by using a cutting-edge tool called Slack. We've actually been using this for quite some time, but the idea behind Slack is that it functions as a rapid communications tool, perfect for disseminating information, calls to action to large groups of people without clogging your inbox with cumbersome emails. I'm sure all of you get a lot of spam. So Slack is the answer. It functions on your phone, just like a texting app, And plus, anyone can join, anyone at all. So you can organize your community, say, out of the debate watching party you're hosting, to get on Slack, get the info, and respond quickly to key moments for our planet in the 2020 election cycle. So I think Diane will share that sign-up page once more. And by joining Slack, you're actually going to be a part of a community ready to make the extinction crisis a 2020 election issue and take rapid action, various types of action to save life on Earth. Other questions would be, does it integrate with my smartphone? Totally does. It integrates with social media. When you join us there, you're going to be joining like-minded people and join a community, people taking action digitally. This is certainly a perfect way to get involved if you're not in one of these early primary states or swing state. You can still apply pressure digitally and take creative and swift action to keep the needle moving. So with that, we'll send it one more time. If you're already on Slack, look to join our digital pressure team in the hashtag pressure team channel. All right, so with that, I'm actually going to open us up for question and answer. I'm sure all of you have been very patiently waiting. I will start by just kind of taking some of these questions maybe in the order they arrived. The first question comes from Ashley from Ashley B. How can maintaining and restoring wildlife corridors through various different ecosystems, how can a focus on this campaign help the biodiversity of these of wildlife corridors and impending crises in these places?
I'll jump in and answer. I mean, one of the biggest problems is habitat fragmentation. Populations get isolated, they can't connect anymore, and they sort of slowly decline and eventually disappear. That's what the science shows us very clearly. It happens all over the world. It happens in the United States. We have so many highways and roads. And one of the big things that our plan addresses is creating 1,000 new wildlife overpasses and having Congress designate wildlife corridors, because if you're a grizzly bear and you need to get over a highway, it's really tricky. Even if you're a salamander, it's really tricky even to cross one little road. And that's how, we have to think about these things holistically, and it's a really critical piece of maintaining healthy wildlife populations.
Thanks. Our next question is, how do you answer the conservative argument that development and perpetual economic growth should be prioritized over concerns about nature? I'm going to pass this over to Brett and/or Tiara.
I'm happy to take this one. I mean, look around at all of the empty malls, all of the empty shopping centers. Most of the development, something like 40% of the development in this country has happened in the last 40 years. And if we turn to a green economy, it would actually create a lot of jobs. Like, I'm from Appalachia, and they've blown up 40% of the surface area of my entire county. And the mountains are just sitting there, and they say they do it for economic development to create flat space, but it hasn't been developed. So we really have to change the conversation and stop making it jobs versus endangered species, and make it protecting endangered species, protecting habitat can create jobs. And our long-term economic well-being and survival depends on that.
Thank you, Tiara. All right, next question is, this is a huge, important, ambitious plan. Seems like if we're going to succeed, it's going to take a coalition of groups. And are there other groups who've committed to working with us? I'm going to take a first stab at that and then pass it over to my colleagues to supplement. Actually, we are working very closely with the Endangered Species Coalition. It's a coalition of over 500 groups working on conservation, wildlife, environmental issues. And we are in lockstep with them, pressuring candidates in this election cycle to be bold, to save life on Earth, but also for the long haul, getting the extinction crisis as a forefront issue, and really doing the hard work necessary to move politicians, to move communities, to move people to really join us and save life on Earth. Brett, Tiara, you want to add anything to that?
For sure. We're going to do a sign-on letter for the plan to get more groups involved, but we don't just want to get other environmental groups or scientific groups. We want all kinds of groups, religious groups, community groups, youth groups. The more the merrier. Everyone is going to have to get involved to save life on Earth. And I'm actually going to be traveling around the country, meeting with people and giving talks and trying to build a huge network of support for this. And we're going to have mobilized for the wild volunteers out, all the people on this call doing good things. And yeah, everyone is welcome to join.
All right, next question, I think is a Brett question. If a person is a federal employee, does this violate the Hatch Act?
I don't believe so. I think, you know, the rule, as I understand it, you are still always free to be a citizen in your spare time, in your own time on the weekends after work. You know, the Hatch Act says that you can't use federal dollars and in your official capacity as a federal employee, but working for the federal government doesn't mean that you sort of give up your rights to participate. And at a more just general level, remember, this is not electioneering, right? This is about issue awareness. This is elevating the extinction crisis to be one of the most important environmental issues that politicians address. So, you know, that is totally within your purview. But no, you shouldn't use your work computer as a government employee, probably anyway. But you certainly can elevate this. We are not advocating for or against a particular candidate. This transcends, as Ash said, this transcends, you know, the political debates of the day. This is more important than that. So I don't believe so. But I'm also happy to follow up with anyone individually after this thing tonight, and we can, you know, do a deeper dive if you're still concerned.
Thank you, Brett. Next question is, can we work from local communities to state level and then federal representatives? I'll take a crack at this one and again, hand it over. Hopefully, if it wasn't clear already, we want you to get involved at all these levels. We want you to organize with your people, with your neighbors, with your friends, with your family, with your coworkers, and really build that grassroots power that we need to push pressure upwards on elected officials and decision makers. State, local officials, they're great, and congressional candidates as well as presidential candidates are also super great, since they really care about getting people's votes, and they really, it's a perfect opportunity to really get them on record about what their position is and what their stance is. So really all levels, let's hit them up. Brett, Tiara, anything you else want to add? Okay. So question here is, how can creating a separate campaign about the extinction crisis result in tangible legislation and political action without diverting resources, or I would add, in addition to resources from the climate crisis? Brett or Tiara? Brett, yeah.
Sure. You know, we will work with Congress to elevate the issue. And obviously one of the longstanding ploys of sort of avoiding addressing any environmental issue is to sort of play one budget against another and to sort of make these impossible choices. And that has been a dynamic we have seen. We have to overcome that. I think the answer is that this is a very high priority thing. It has to be addressed. The climate crisis also has to be addressed. I think many folks on this webinar would agree that we don't always spend all of the money in the federal budget. that wisely in other areas that have just absurd, ludicrous, large amounts of money. So I don't think that that's a likely outcome. And I think we believe that you can do both, and you should do both. But I work. My day job is in DC. I'm on the Hill all the time. We see these budget things play out, and we have to advocate that this is we're not trying to cannibalize anything. We're trying to add resources to fight this critical fight, and that's why we need grassroots support. Because if politicians hear that it's important, I don't think that they're just going to gut all climate funding to pay for this. I think we just have to be strong advocates and really show that this is important.
Thanks. So a couple of questions I've seen come through. What can someone who isn't old enough to vote do to get more involved? And I think someone just asked the question of what can ordinary folks do other than voting? And I'm gonna just take that as one question because mobilizing and organizing in your own community is a perfect way to save life on Earth. Voting is actually a super, super important way, but getting others around you to take action with you is even better. That's additive. And here's why. While we are in an election year, we have unique opportunities really to use grassroots power to push candidates, but even incumbents as well, on issues that we care about the most. And the more folks we get to organize, the stronger our voice is. We've seen historical movements use organizing power and grassroots power to push elected officials and to push decision makers. So the best way coming out of this call to get involved in that is to sign up for our digital pressure team so that you can join us in wielding media, social media, and digital pressure on candidates. And then either sign up to host a debate watching party, or if you're not able to, say if you're not quite old enough to host one yet, go and join one. Start talking with your community, start getting organized, and start really pulling those levers to get elected officials to move. Okay, next question is...
Hey, Ash, could I add one thing real quick? Do you mind?
Yeah, absolutely.
Quick, I mean, as an anecdote, and it's something I've always believed in, and it's true, I grew up in New York on the Hudson River where Pete Seeger and the Waterkeepers, around just gathering people gets involved in talking about issues. And it doesn't have to be always, going to Congress, like talking about issues, talking about wildlife, talking about what's happening. That's huge. And that's how a lot of that just started, was just sailing a boat up and down a river. I think that model is really key here.
Thanks.
Can I add something really quick too?
Yeah, absolutely.
These are so powerful. The voice of people who aren't old enough to vote can really change the world. I mean, look at Greta Thunberg and the youth climate strike. And I can think of at least 2 campaigns in my life that the campaigns changed when the kids got involved. There was a mountain that coal companies wanted to blow up, and kids started this letter writing campaign, and the mountain got saved after they got involved. And like rattlesnake roundups in Georgia, we were working to try to end those. And when an 8-year-old and a 10-year-old stepped in to that campaign, that roundup ended because of their voices. So children have so much power and such a strong voice.
That is a great story, Tiara. Thank you. Actually, the next question I think is probably going to go to you. So I have a couple of questions here about specific ecosystems. And are there particular biomes that we should protect to save the most species?
For sure. So scientists have identified these hotspots, which are areas where a lot of different kinds of plants and animals live. And like the southeastern United States is one of them. The rivers and streams there have the most freshwater mussels, crayfish, and salamanders of any area in the whole world. And unfortunately, most of them are at risk of extinction. And so by identifying and protecting those places, which is one of the things that we call for in the Saving Life on Earth plan, we can get a lot of bang for the buck. And as we create these 500 new protected areas, we'll look at areas with high biodiversity to prioritize.
Great, thanks. question now is, how can we get local media, news outlets, journalists to ask Congress representatives and senators about the extinction crisis to get them on record? How can we wield media in that way? Tiara, Brett?
I think that's one of the things that the bird dogging campaign is going to do. They're going to like dress up like a polar bear, frostpaw, and get in front of the candidates and in front of a camera and get them on record taking a stance on these issues. And I mean, people can go meet with or call their local journalist and their local newspaper and ask for more coverage on these issues. My heart has been really warmed to see some really small town papers across the country writing stories about extinction. It gives me a lot of hope.
Thanks. We actually are getting a lot of questions about the digital pressure team and how we're effectively going to wield that and things like that. So I'm just going to take a second to just like go over that in a little bit more detail again. And one specific question that we have is, if we get an elected official on record, what should we do with that documentation? So first of all, you should congratulate yourself because you have got the golden egg. You've got a candidate on record. Why documentation of getting them on record, especially on video, is so important is because it's a super, super great tool to mobilize folks in your community, other constituents of that candidate, other voters, around this issue. If they're on record supporting the extinction, the plan that we put out, or the Saving Life on Earth plan that we put out, great. Let's get it out over social media and get people riled up, knowing that there are more and more folks running for office supporting this plan, help really create a movement and show that voters across the US, no matter where they are, really care about this issue. It's also a great way to mobilize and hold candidates accountable to what they've said by capturing it on video. You actually have a record that you can use to hold people's feet to the fire. And the digital pressure team is certainly one way that we can use those tools super effectively. So when you sign up for the digital pressure team, you join Slack. And that's a great way that we can send out calls to action, different types of action, ways for you to get involved no matter where you are, that you can do digitally. Lots of the calls to action will probably be involving social media. But there'll also be ways, there'll be prompts for you to organize offline. If we give you a prompt, you can organize with your community in real life. The important thing to know here is that Slack is a really great medium for us to communicate because it's extremely quick and it comes over your smartphone like a text. And it's a way for you to have other people join you. So that you're all kind of doggy piling on important calls to action that require people to move very swiftly. Again, those could be social media or they could be organizing in real life. The important part for you to do right now is actually just to sign up for Slack and join us and really try your hand. So with that, I am going to ask our next question. A lot of folks are asking about what's happening with wolves and the Endangered Species Act campaign. How's that going right now? Brett, Tiara?
Sure. I mean, I can talk a little bit about that. We are fighting what the Trump administration is doing on the Endangered Species Act in court. Those cases are all ongoing. We are still working with our friends and allies in Congress to try to do as much as we can to push back on their agenda, fighting to get species listed, still fighting against bad decisions to delist species. We think the Trump administration will likely delist the wolf in the April, May, June time period, as far as we can tell. Trust me, we will be back in court as quickly as we can if they do that, and we will keep fighting. We will keep trying to slow them down, and it's a major effort, but we are still totally engaged on that. The incredible incredible groundswell of support on both fronts, the terrible changes to the Endangered Species Act and on wolves, really helped. And it really makes it easier to build a big coalition to fight both of those efforts, which is what we've got. We've got, on the Endangered Species Act fight alone, we have 22 states on our side, which is amazing. I mean, say, well, I wouldn't have them all, but like, for any lawsuit, that's an incredible number. And, it's all the big blue ones, and it represents over half the population of the country. So we're still fighting all of them. And I'm actually quite optimistic on that we will ultimately prevail in those court cases.
Great, thank you. So question here, what sets the center apart from other organizations working on this issue? What are like some of the unique approaches that we're using to save life on Earth? I have an idea, but I'm gonna pass it over to Brett and Tiara to weigh in first.
The center rocks because we work on all species, from wolves and polar bears all the way down to snails and crawdads, and that is so important. It's so hard to get other groups to take action for little species that people don't think about, but that are so important. And we go at it from science, from activism, from law, from creative media, so many angles, and it's been so exciting. I've been at the center for 12 years, and when I started, there were 40 of us, and now there's over 100 of us, and I'm in awe of my colleagues and all of the talents that they bring to the table. So I think that we can build an even bigger army using all of these tools and fighting for all species.
And I would just like to add that I think the center is unique in this because we combine kind of like a secret sauce of law, science, creative media, and near and dear to my heart, organizing power to really deliver the hardest punch that we can to save life on Earth. And I think I'm going to focus on the last one, not only because I'm an organizer, but because I really think it is the missing key here that most other organizations don't have quite nailed yet, which is that we organize. We work with people just like you in communities across the US and beyond to really push to save life on Earth, to build up your skills, to get you talking to other folks and build that grassroots power that we need to shift the debate, to shift the conversation in order to make the extinction crisis the issue it needs to be right at the front in order to protect our planet for the long haul. So I think we're kind of wrapping up our questions here. One of the last questions here is, how can we combine forces with other people on this call in our area? And I'm so glad you asked that. Because coming out of this call, tomorrow you get a follow-up email with ways of how to do just that, how to connect with other people in your area. And there are two big ways that you will find. First, sign up for the Digital Pressure Team. Sign up for Slack, because that is, again, a community that you will find where you're able to actually talk with people, everyday folks, other activists just like yourself, and make connections in your locality. The second way is sign up to host a debate watching party, because when you do, and you will find this in the materials we'll send you tomorrow, when you sign up to host a debate watching party, you put it on our event map, and that is an event that you can get all your friends and family and neighbors and coworkers to sign up and RSVP for, and the center will help alert its area members to that event and help augment and supplement your recruitment by inviting like-minded people, friendly people to your event so that you can get connected and really, again, make that powerful punch. So with that, I think this is the close of some of our major questions. I'm just gonna do one final call for any last questions we may have coming through the lines. And while we wait for those last questions to come in, is there anything, Brett or Tiara, that you wanted to mention about any of the questions that we had so far? Anything that came up?
Just that we're available. You're available, I'm available, Brett's available, everybody at the center. If you want to get in touch with us, we're happy to talk one-on-one and scheme together.
Right. I also want to note that we have a lot of questions coming in about Australia as well, and we are heartbroken about this. And there isn't necessarily any one specific question that stands out other than maybe just some social despair about this. Any words that either of you want to offer?
Australia, California, the Amazon, the hurricanes, it's all just heart crushing. And it's why we've launched this Saving Life on Earth campaign, because the situation has become so dire that it's bigger than any one species or event. And it's tragic and heartbreaking. And we have to win this campaign. We have to save life on Earth to prevent these types of tragedies from happening in the future.
And I'll just add, it's just brutal. I've been to Australia once, and it's crazy to think that places I went to are probably gone just a few years ago. But I'll just say that, part of our plan is an international piece, and it's actually quite large because, the United States has enormous resources, and we also have an enormous share of the burden and responsibility for the mess we are in. We are the biggest emitter of carbon dioxide sort of historically over time. And that is one of the things that is really driving this incredibly awful climate change that's happening in Australia is getting hit hard. And, we need to step up in terms of what we do overseas, in terms of assistance, in terms of a vision of what needs to happen to save these, biodiversity hotspots all over the world. A few of them are in Australia. And, we can't obviously force other countries to change, but we have a lot of tools to bring if we choose to do so. So, it's a big effort, but I think there are solutions, and we just have to hope that, things can kind of hang on in the meanwhile.
Thank you. Thank you both. And thank you to everyone on the call for submitting your questions. We actually have our organizers will be in touch with all of you tomorrow. So if you have a question that you did not get answered, or have a future question you may want to ask, feel free to get in touch with us after we send the follow-up email tomorrow. And you can certainly always email us at mobilize@biologicaldiversity.org, and we'll get back to you within about 24 hours. So I would like to close us then for the evening and hand it back over to Tierra to lead us in a closeout and some final words. Tierra?
One of the most powerful tools that the corporations and industries that are destroying life on Earth have is to make us feel that we're powerless, that we can't change things, that our actions don't matter. But that's not true. We are powerful, and around the whole world, people are joining together to fight to save wild places and to fight for a livable climate. Extinction is a political choice, and by choosing to fight extinction, we can save life on Earth.
Thank you, Tierra. And any final words from you?
Yeah, I'll just say that, I think, if we're watching the news and current events, there's a real hunger for really bold solutions, whether it is climate or healthcare or education. This is the time to be offering bold ideas. And this is the first step in doing so on the extinction crisis, but it's really exciting and inspiring that so many folks have joined us tonight. And I'll say, the good news is we actually know how to fix this, right? It's doable. We have the know-how and the expertise, and what we really just need is the political will to do it. And this is how you start that process and build that support to make it happen. So thank you.
And thank you. Thank you both to our panelists, and thank all of you on the call tonight. Thank you so much for carving out part of your evening and stepping up to take action. We're super excited to keep working with you to save life on Earth. And I'm just going to reiterate from the beginning, we know when people rise up, change happens. And that's why we're calling on you to move up tonight. Be courageous, be bold, take the action necessary. We need to win, honestly, because when we do that, we will. Just a couple reminders before we close. Check your email tomorrow morning because you will get a nice care package from us. And we'll be in touch with all of you who signed up to host debate watching parties within the next few days. It will either be a staff member or a mentor. So please keep your eyes peeled for that. And again, thank you so much for all of the work that you are doing in your local communities and beyond. Our effort is meaningful. It makes a difference. We know we've lost a lot of species, but we have still so many more to save. So thank you again, and we'll call it a night. Bye-bye.